I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 492. We are only we're 8 episodes away, 2 months away, roughly, from 500 episodes of this show. Thank you all so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week. Really happy to have you here. Thank you so much to all of you who are finding us only recently. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you here. Hope you will come back. Hope you will check out past episodes. And for those of you who are returning listeners, thank you so much for continuing to listen. And thank you to those of you who support the show, members of the Reformation Gun Club. We are listener funded. We don't have any advertising. We don't have any sponsors. We rely on the members of the Reformation Gun Club, their annual and their monthly contributions, whatever it might be, to help keep the lights on. If you would like to be one of those people, and if you value what we do and want to see it continue, visit the website, armedlutheran.us, look for a blue button that says Contribute to the Mission. Click that. That will take you to Give, Send, Go. You can also go to reformationgunclub.com. That will take you directly to Give, Send, Go, where they handle all of our crowdfunding. They're a Christian-based crowdfunding site, and we really appreciate the services that they provide. And whether you're giving $1 a month, $1 a year, $100 a month, hey, I can always dream, or $100 a year, I appreciate every single penny. And I hope, because what it tells me is that you value what we do, and I am eternally grateful for that. And I'm always going to be working to make sure that you feel like it's worth it. And I really do appreciate it. We are in the middle of I don't know how long this series might go, but we're in the middle of a series talking about church security. This all came up in episode 488, which was our online hangout for June. Our next online hangout is coming up next week, so stay tuned for that. But what I'm doing here is following up on that discussion that we had in episode 488 about church security. And I wanted really in this series to focus on, the ways that you can improve the security of your church, your place of worship, without breaking the bank. Ways that you can, you might think, we can't afford to do this, or we can't afford that, or there's legal this and legal that, or our insurance, blah, blah, blah. No, there are things you can do today. There are things you can do between now and your next worship service that will improve the security of your church, and it won't cost you a penny. And I'm going to discuss another one of those ways today, and that is the formation of a church security team. You already have the makings of this security team. It's called your greeters and your ushers. These people are already volunteering their time to meet people at the door, to pass out bulletins, to guide them to their seats, that sort of thing. Expand the role of, discuss with your ushers, with your elders, with your pastor, expanding the role of those who have volunteered to be greeters or ushers, whatever you call them. to include some sort of security team assistance. Now, this might be as simple as Bob's going to make sure all the doors are locked, like we talked about last week. Or Jim over here is going to kind of make the rounds around the outside of the building and the parking lot and keep an eye on things outside. Or Fred and Steve are going to be positioned in the narthex greeting people and kind of keeping an eye on strangers, visitors, people who we've never seen before, to kind of suss out who are the potential problems. And maybe even having to deal with disruptive, drunk, homeless, beggar people who come through your front door. This is something you can do today. Well, you can't do it today. You can do it this week. You can schedule a meeting if you are a member of the church council, if you're a member of your board of elders, if you're a pastor and you're hearing this and you've been concerned about the security of your church and how to improve it, listen to last week and the week before, and then call a meeting of your elders, of your church council, of get together with the people who serve or volunteer as greeters and as ushers, and sit down over coffee or beer or dinner and discuss ways that your existing members can enhance the security of the church. It doesn't have to be a paid thing. It doesn't have to be, well, we're going to hire security guards. If you got the money for it, that's fine. But you've already got people who care about the church, who are members of the church, who are volunteering their time, that could serve in these roles. Now, obviously, if they're not comfortable doing these things, maybe they're older or a little more frail. Maybe they're not interested in, confronting people and potentially, having to deal with disruptive visitors or whatnot. Then you can continue to allow those people to do sort of the less security intensive things. Maybe they're just going and checking to make sure the doors are locked that are supposed to be locked, or maybe they're just handing out bulletins or guiding people to their seats. But those who are interested in helping enhance the church's security, those are the people you really want to focus on and give them those sort of frontline security roles, whether it's patrolling the parking lot or the outside of your buildings, or sweeping through the other parts of the campus maybe that are closed, making sure nobody who is not supposed to be there. Like we talked about last week, if you have outbuildings or connected parts of the church where maybe you've got an education wing, or you've got offices, or a disconnected fellowship hall or whatever, maybe you have somebody who goes and patrols every now and then through there during the service to make sure there's nobody in there that's not supposed to be. Make sure all the doors are locked that are supposed to be locked. Those are kinds of things that you can do tomorrow. Well, with a little planning next week. And it won't cost you a thing. Now, when I say security team, if you're not thinking about like rent-a-cops, you might be, the first thing that you might come to mind is guns. Well, what about carrying guns? I would keep this is not legal advice, by the way, but to be safe, I would not make this sort of a formal, official church security team, and I would not have a policy of, for example, an official church policy with regards to guns. If state law allows and city ordinance allows guns in your place of worship, then, as we said in episode 488, that's kind of adiaphora. We just don't address it, and we leave it to the freedom of the Christian, the freedom of our greeters and ushers to exercise their rights and responsibilities. But saying that, you also need to understand that there may be some members of your security team, we're just going to call them that for now, that are going to be carrying. And those, you need to know who those individuals are. You also need to make sure that you encourage those people to get training and potentially to train together, if that's possible. That may require some investment on the part of the group or those individuals, but on the whole, a security team made up of your ushers and greeters, mainly, is not going to cost you anything. These should be men who are capable of dealing with a physical threat should it present itself. Whether you're dealing with that threat with a firearm or not is a separate measure or a separate consideration. But these should be physically fit, capable individuals who could deal with a threat. They should meet regularly to discuss some of the things that we talked about in the last 2 episodes. These are the people that you want to sit down with and discuss what are our priorities when it comes to security. Go back 2 episodes to episode 490, where we talked about prioritizing emergencies and threats. And where are our concerns as far as points of entry that we talked about last week, and have plans for how to manage those things. What do we do if this happens or that happens? Which doors do we keep closed? Who is in charge of, doing what? All of that stuff needs to be planned out. So there is a cost to creating a church security team. That cost is time. That's all. The time it takes to sit down and to plan and discuss on a regular basis. I would say once a month is probably the ideal to have your church security team meet to discuss potential threats, to discuss how you're going to patrol your campus, to discuss how to deal with emergencies. Remember, we talked at length various times in the past 2 episodes. Emergencies like a medical emergency are far more likely to happen, especially if you have elderly members of your congregation. Those things are far more likely to happen than a mass shooting. Not to say that you shouldn't be prepared for a mass shooting, but if you're preparing for a mass shooting, but you're not prepared for old man Jenkins to pass out in the 3rd row because he has a heart condition, then you're doing something wrong. Your planning is not up to snuff. And that brings me to the medical side of the emergency planning and preparation. This is where your greeters and your pastor, your elders, their knowledge of the medical conditions of certain members of the congregation will come in handy. I'm not talking about trying to get into people's private medical records or invade their privacy. What I'm talking about here is if you know, for example, that old man Jenkins has, he had a heart attack last summer, and that is a potential problem. Or if you know old lady Smith in the 4th row on the right-hand side of the main aisle, you know that she has issues with blood sugar. and you know this because either they've experienced episodes during church events, or because they've told you, or whatever, or you visited them in the hospital. Those are the kind of things that all your members of your security team need to know so that they can be on the lookout for those sorts of issues. What do I need to worry about? Is old man Jenkins, is he just very quiet and just not feeling like standing up, or is he slumped over because he's had a heart attack? Is is old lady Smith on the right-hand side, is she trembling because she's moved by the Spirit, or is she having a blood sugar episode? These are the kinds of things that you need to kind of know are possibilities and prepare for. Who's going to be calling 911? Who is going to be assisting in getting a member of the congregation lifted out of the pews and taken somewhere to be treated with the least amount of disruption, but most importantly, the most smooth transition for that person that is not harmful to them as they're being dragged. You just don't want to throw them over your shoulder in a fireman's carry and yank them back to the narthex and lay them out on the concrete. What is going to be what's the plan for if old man Jenkins has a heart attack? Do you have defibrillators? Who's in charge of calling 911? Do you have hand signals or radio signals to let people know what to watch out for? All of that kind of stuff can be worked out. We'll talk about some of the tools that you can use for communication and that sort of thing that may involve a little bit of an investment of money, but it's certainly not going to cost you a whole lot. We'll talk about those things in a future episode, but it doesn't cost you anything to make use of the people who are already volunteering to help. And making sure that those people are prepared, that they're trained, that they have been through the planning sessions so that they know what to do in all of the different situations that we kind of talked about in 2 episodes back when we were talking about prioritizing emergencies and threats. All of those sorts of things, everybody has to be on the same page so that they know exactly what their responsibilities are, who's doing what, and what to do in an emergency. All that takes is time. It doesn't cost you anything. If you want to throw in a little money and buy the group dinner or something and sit down over dinner or beers or whatever and hash all this stuff out, that's the only cost. That's fellowship. That's an opportunity to serve together, to figure out how you can better serve and protect your brothers and sisters in Christ. That's all that is. You don't have to. Now, you could. Another thing, and I meant to mention this last week when I talked about reaching out to local law enforcement about your security plans, you could and probably should talk to local law enforcement, your police department, your sheriff's department, about perhaps sending out a police car on Sunday mornings to sit in your parking lot if you think that's an issue. If you have issues with people who are vagrants and you're worried about that sort of thing, having either a patrol car loop through your parking lot a time or two every Sunday at random times, or having them sit in the parking lot during your Sunday service, if you can work that out with the local law enforcement agency, great. But you don't need to spend money to, like I've said the last couple of episodes, you don't have to spend any money. You don't have to break your budget or even affect your budget at all to have members of your congregation who are already volunteering to serve to take on a little bit more responsibility to help secure the church against emergencies and threats. And I have no doubt that you will have volunteers. If you have people who are already willingly and gladly serving the church as an elder, as an usher or as a greeter, I'm certain that you will find plenty of them, of those people, who are also willing to take on a little bit more responsibility to help secure your church from threats. So, church security team doesn't have to be a big formal thing. In fact, I would make it an informal thing, because I think if you make it a formal, budget item, something that is part of the church bylaws or whatever, that might, not a lawyer, not an insurance person, but that might open you up to some legal or insurance issues. So I would keep the idea of a security team kind of informal and not an official. So it's basically just an expansion of the volunteers who are ushers and greeters. Again, I would not recommend having a specific policy with regards to the carrying of firearms. As long as it's legal, leave it to the freedom of your congregation to decide. But at the same time, also, among the members of this quote unquote security team, you should know which ones are carrying, which ones have non-lethal, which ones are carrying guns, so that you know what to expect. But I would keep all of this very informal, because there's no need. We'll talk about training and planning and that sort of thing in the next episode, but there's no need for like a formal, uniformed, official security team. Your security team is your greeters and your ushers who are there already volunteering their time to help people find their seats, to greet people, to hand out bulletins, to make sure that everything is orderly when the offering's been taken up, or when people are going to the altar, or making sure that everything's cleaned up after the service. Those volunteers, they can help secure your church, and it won't cost a dime. All it will cost is a little bit of time and gratitude for the efforts of the people who love and care about the church. That's all it takes. It takes a handful of people who are willing to make the sacrifice to do it, and the sacrifice is a little extra time to plan and maybe even do some training together to get some specific training on things like CPR or what have you. Those sorts of things, it's not going to cost the church a dime to do. We'll talk about some things that may cost a little bit in a future episode. We're going to talk about cameras. We're going to talk about like communication between members, depending on the size of your church or your campus, and how you want to be able to communicate during a service when there are threats and that sort of thing. Or concerns, you might need some communications tools and that sort of thing. So we'll talk about some inexpensive options for that in a future episode. We'll talk about training and that sort of thing probably in the next episode. Well, not the next episode, the next installment in this series, which will be in 2 weeks after our online hangout for July. So it'll probably be the first episode in August or the last episode in July. I don't have the calendar in front of me. We'll figure it out. But like I was saying, it doesn't take a whole lot of, as I've said in the last few episodes, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to improve and enhance the security of your church. All it takes is a willingness among your members, the people who are already volunteering their time, to take on a little extra responsibility and to plan and to think about what the emergencies, the threats, the possible issues are and how to solve them. All it takes is a little bit of time. So if you have any questions about anything I discussed here today, if you have your own ideas about how to develop a church security team or how to turn your existing volunteers into sort of a security team, then leave me a message. Visit the website armedlutheran.us, send a message through the website. There's a contact form there on the website. You can also send messages through the Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio, or our Facebook page, or the YouTube channel. We would love to hear from you. Until we get together for our online hangout for July 2026, that's coming next week, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.